Ryan, this is Josh.
Hello.
We're going to do as best we can. Hopefully teach you something about the players that you don't know. At least, at the very least, basic service. That fixes a huge majority of the problems. So, hopefully, you all learn something there. We'll start with players. Does anyone have any questions about players they didn't know about? Or is there a certain player that you want to look at and ask a question about? I don't know if you can see too well back there, but there's some uncommon, that's a PAL player. There's some uncommon ones, like an Elmo, but that's basically a Toshiba clone of the VP100, which is down here.
Which one's the most rare on it? Which the one's the hardest to find?
The hardest ones to find that I've seen is not on here. It's a VP4000. And Josh was lucky enough to find a bunch of them somehow, which is that, and the only one that we know of other than Tom was those two now. And did Tony have a remote for his, or is it just me?
Just Jim.
I just have a remote.
You probably got the only remote.
Yeah, this is the VP4000 box. Kind of hard to.
Is that stereo then? Is that why it's a 4?
It is stereo.
Okay.
It's basically a Toshiba 550 clone. It's like the exact same insides. The only thing that's different is the case. And like you can see, they have their own service disc, but this is definitely for the VP2000. It definitely, the back looks the exact same as the service disc for the FG players. They have their own stylus box too. But
Nice photograph.
I have a picture of it in the. Well, there's the stylus cartridge box. Those aren't, you don't see those either. There it is.
Oh.
It's, I wish I had a better picture, but I'm sure they're in there somewhere in photo bucket. But it's the buttons, everything, they act the exact same way as a 550. It's just a different case. Stereo, it's got a remote. I think I have a remote out here somewhere.
Is it a wireless or wired?
It is a wired remote.
Okay. Really?
Yep. Nope, that's shipping damage.
Oh.
When someone doesn't pack a player properly, that's what happens. But yeah, there's that. The only player that I haven't seen ever really is this the SKT 265, and it's got a weird board that connects to computers. Tom's got it, obviously. I don't know if he's ever used it. He's never said anything about it, but he could have. I know he's looking for software for it, so probably not. If we're going like straight retail players, the hardest one that I think to find is probably that 400X. And John, you said you've only seen one or two?
Yes, I saw one.
Yeah. Other than that, pretty much everything can be found slightly easily.
What was the X?
Yeah, what's the X for?
There were some software modifications made to it.
Yep, minor internal differences. Same remotes. The few players that aren't on here is obviously the VP4000 wasn't on here. There's a 5001 on here, and it's like their bare minimum. All it has is fast forward, rewind, play.
Okay, like a
Pause.
75.
Yeah, it's like their version. And the farther along they got in these Hitachi players, I got one back there, they became super light and like they refined it. Very small parts, like everything got just compartmentalized and just modular, you know, just way away from it, and very light. I actually like them a lot, but you can't fix them. There's very few things that you have to find belts. That's about it. Every other part you'd have to pull from a player. There's a 101P. Josh has that. I have that. I know Tom has seen it. I just don't think he has it. Let's put it up. But it's the RF connection. So, but actually, now that I think about it, This one might be harder to. This is probably up there with the 400 though, the 400X.
I had one once and sold it.
Did you? Okay, I got one, and I've only seen one on Craigslist. Same Josh saw it. Did you see the remote by chance?
Did not. I just couldn't remember. I didn't realize it had a remote. But
Yeah.
I don't think mine did, but
Okay.
I like to have little colors, like they color coded everything on the panel.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but there's colors right there. That's like green, and there's like a blue and a green and a red over the power button.
That's cool.
But it's really an SJT 300.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, for players, that's kind of it. I mean, unless you have an individual question, we can skip over these because they're just players. Anyone have any questions about these ones? No?
You want to mention the group pulley and the...
Yeah, I can do that.
quick, or-
I can do that. We could also, well, I'll show them now just because I have that picture up there. On these players, the Wards and the Toshiba, well, all three of the 500 and the 550 have different pulleys than these two. These are like the ground model, the very first ones. So they have a thicker pulley, like, I can show you right here. Yeah. This is the early ones, the 100. And this is the 500 and the 550. You see how it's a lot more shallow? They made it so it sunk down more. And you can still groove those, but the guy that was grooving them for us, Charlie Bertram, didn't have a lathe that would go far enough down. So we would end up using the metal one, the replacement that Tom does at CED Magic. But if you can get it grooved, you can still use it and not have to pay that $30, $40 for like the adapter and then the pulley. But if you have to, it's a good thing to do. But they work, both work just fine. This one's a little easier. But yeah, that's really the only difference in the pulleys at least. The same belts, they all use the same 3 belts. Oh, an Avon disc. That's courtesy of Jesse. Another Avon disc. And the back of another Avon disc. And the other Avon disc I have just says Avon on it. It's like someone just wrote Avon on a little piece of tape, basically.
Yeah.
So,
But that's a printed label on it.
yeah, that's definitely a printed label.
Yeah, because I have
And
that
that's
one as
it.
well.
This 6, you have one?
I have it, and it's got the same.
Oh, that
label,
one?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I randomly took a picture of it.
Yeah, those are the Avon discs.
And strangely, I've got just some friends of friends whose mothers worked at Avon back in the day. None of them had ever heard of this. Like I asked her, and she was like, "No, I was whatever master guru distributor in the '80s. Never heard it, never saw it. So I don't know if it was regionalized or what."
There was 10 of them. There's 10.
Really?
There's 10 Avon discs.
Okay, Tom's list I think only has 6. No, that's good. That's
My
good to
list
know.
has 10.
No, I believe that. That's true. Yeah, no, that one that you showed was 6.
Oh, I shouldn't have said anything, huh?
You have the vacation disc, though, right? Or at least one of them.
Yes, I do have the Hawaii vacation disc, and I think
Because those were distributed travel agencies.
yeah, those are hard ones to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, the travel agency ones, the Avon discs, and things like the Aloha and Walk Through Universe. All the ones that like those are really hard to find. Like I've minus Story of O and Savage Streets, but everything else can kind of be found. But if it says ER, you're probably not going to find it. If you do, you're probably going to pay a lot now. This is all this is all the remotes for the players. That's a Hitachi one, very early. These are realistic. This.
You don't have the Sears in there.
Yeah, I do, but it's right there actually. That's the Sears one.
Sears, though.
Sanyo had a player, I guess, and well, I have a player, but Rick from California said they had he saw it with his own eyes. It was a Sears version of the Sanyo player, and he said he's only seen one, but it was only because his dad repaired them at the time too, and they contracted out because their players weren't getting there fast enough or something, or they hadn't got what they wanted first, their own, because the Sanyo is totally different looking than any other player. I should probably note that too. Everything about it's different. It raises different. It's completely different in almost every way, other than the stylus and how it works. But that's a pretty rare. But the player, the DRC30 remote, they also have one that says Sears. So the Players totally existed. I never seen one. I know I've got 2 of the remotes. Some old remote replacement company had a bunch. I was like, no way, $10 a piece? Happening. And they work. I've used them on the Sanyo player. I got a Sanyo player in the box, I think from you actually.
Yes.
I was talking about the tall, skinny Sears one with the wire on it.
What's that? Oh,
For the-
that one?
Yeah.
That one is for the, I'm pretty sure the early Hitachis. Well, yeah.
Didn't you take it out of the box?
I didn't. They look the same as
It
the
loses
pretty
off
much.
value once it's out of the box.
These came from that same replacement company. They were definitely the old stock tape was still on them.
Yeah, I've got ones like this.
I know these came from some guy in, I want to say Illinois. He's gone now, but he was selling these like $25 a piece forever.
Alex?
No, it wasn't AJ. It wasn't Alex. It was, I'm not sure what his name was. I'd have to look on eBay. But he had stylus galore and everything. I'm sure you saw so many of those stylists.
Right.
He's out now. But every chance I got, because I only have barely any of these left, because they all went with players I sold.
So what's the difference between the green box that's under the arrow there and then the color?
That one, as far as I know, these are like after, but this came with the player.
Yeah.
Like when you bought a 400, that came inside it. If you bought the remote. This is a Dimension one that works on the 400. You guys have seen, I know you have. You guys have too.
And if you see any of the blocky ones, even the dimension ones, the black ones, sometimes they, in the later years, they actually got rid of it was a bid 2, and then they actually got rid of it. But the board underneath still has the spot, so if you ever can get it real cheap or snatch it, because you can swap boards for something you already have, because that spot's still there. They just,
I've
for some
seen
reason-
Rick used to do. He would take a Dremel and drill out the hole and put a new button in for it.
Oh yeah.
So you can still make them work for it.
So the other thing with those remotes is if you bought the TV in a Dimension system, but not the video disc, there was actually a gray plastic cover over half of them, which I don't see in
Yeah,
any of
On
those.
these, the smoke colored
Yeah,
cover.
smoke colored
Yeah.
covers,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, these, I'm not sure why I can guarantee they're in all these boxes though. These ones came real nice and fresh. Yeah, that's the Toshiba remote. That's the Ward's. This is the only infrared remote for PAL players. I actually have that right here. It's for the 201. I'll pass it around if you want. It's just a rare remote. You won't probably see it too often. Something to look at. But it's the only one. I know for a while you didn't know if it had one.
Right.
And
So
luckily.
people here that have PAL players, you have to have a PAL TV to play on, right?
No.
Or is there a converter box?
You have on older TVs, you need to get the little converter that converts the video and audio. But on new TVs, they're already there. It plays it. Like I'm pretty sure this projector plays PAL and CCAM, and obviously NTSC. But that TV you said plays PAL? Yeah. The newer TVs definitely play PAL. But if not, it's a $10 to $20 box adapter. That's about it.
Were all the players synced to line frequency, or were some of them electronically modulated? Because I would think that the 50 hertz.
I do know that you can take parts from PAL player Hitachis and use them on the NTSC and vice versa. So it's happening as the power goes in. There's some type of power converter in there that accepts the 220 or 240 versus R110.
Just out of curiosity, does anybody know of a universal remote that will work with any of these players?
Tom's website has one. You can use a Palm Pilot, an old Palm Pilot for 400s.
Okay.
You just have to reprogram it for
I'm
it.
pretty sure Harmony will work as well.
Really?
Because I've got my
Yeah.
Harmony set up.
If you know the code, you can in the remote. You have one of them special remotes. You can definitely get it.
I think
But-
I remember you telling me too, like an ex of mine had a whole RCA set up, and they didn't change the codes till what, like the early 2000s or something, because he had like a newer amp, and couldn't do everything, but I could actually use either remote for different stuff. It was funny because it was
Yeah.
like this new long skinny remote that worked with my forklift on certain things. It was, you know, not everything.
Yep, some features won't be there. But
Right.
yeah. This you just gotta find the right remote, basically.
Okay, I guess.
If it can scan it enough, or Tom's website is really, it's got a lot of information for stuff like that. He really does have a lot on the remotes.
The SGD 250 and the J300, it's an analog remote code, so that won't work with some of these.
For the newer remote, okay, yeah. Okay.
It will work
Yeah.
with some old TV remotes.
Yeah,
Right.
he's right, yeah, some old TV remotes will do it. Try to think if that's probably it for players, unless you have an individual question about one. That's the best I can think
So
of.
I'm just curious, based on what you were saying, particularly about the Sanyo and some of the others which had later engineering redesigns to lighten the weight, that work was presumably then not done by RCA.
Oh,
Like-
definitely not on those ones. I would assume Sanyo either hired someone or it was in-house kind of thing.
Got no comment.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know about the Sanyo. The later on, the Hitachi ones, it was probably the same people doing it, honestly. I think because it was the same kind over and over and everything's kind of the same inside. They just,
Right.
like the tray, instead of being metal, became really light plastic and they took every bit out that they could. The electronics got smaller, the boards got smaller. I assume it's them, but I don't really know.
No, it's just surprising. I mean, it's one thing to say we're going to redesign the case, you know, to our form factor, but it would seem even back then it would have been really expensive. We're going to do our own boards.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Other than that, I would assume they kept doing it because they wanted to refine it. They're like, well, let's see if we can make it smaller, cheaper, and better. Maybe it'll get people to buy it. Yeah, well, that's pretty much it for the fighters then.
Is anybody collecting advertising for the players? I mean, you're mentioning smaller, cheaper, and better. I wonder if the price on those actually dropped during.
You know, I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. I would assume, especially all the prices started going down at the end.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they did that on purpose. Like, let's re-engineer so we can make it and then put ads up.
Mhm.
They might have. I just haven't seen any ads.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an entire file drawer of ad cards and flyers and whatever, and I've never studied them, and it's not always obvious when they were printed either. You know.
Yeah, that's
so-
true. Yeah. And now that I think most of the ads I have didn't have prices, but that's just the ads I have.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mentioned this too. That's the Sears. That's the SFT 100 clone. It has its own manual for that. I have that, but you can. I'm sure you could use the SFT 100.
Well, at least until pretty recently, Sears had all their manuals and parts online. I don't know if they still do for something that old, but
Sears is pretty good about that.
yeah, I mean, you could go in and get the Sears part number for the stylus and everything else. And granted, at this point, they're all out of stock, but
Yeah.
you know, there's some warehouse in the middle of God knows where, I'm sure, that's filled with Sears
Yeah.
parts for that.
I've
Some
seen
guys going, I can't believe no one wants these.
There's the Sears Hitachi ones. There's still I've seen the exploded diagram and
Yeah.
the part numbers on that Sears website, and you can still find parts for the remote. They might be sold out once you call and ask or try and
Right.
order, but like wow, the buttons there still, you can get the replacement buttons and stuff. But yeah, this one's
Yeah, for
basically
some,
that. And you
like
can
for a
see-
vacuum from the 80s, it said, oh, this part's available. That when I clicked on it and tried to order it, it said, oh,
Nope.
no longer.
No
They
go.
actually charged me for it and then refunded me.
Yeah,
It's
they
also
went and searched for it.
scary how
Nope.
expensive some of those parts are. Because my tractor, I go on the Ford website, and they have parts, and they're like, yeah, this washer is $63. I'm like, yeah, I don't need a new old stock washer, thank you, I'm just going to go to Home Depot, but they're in the system.
This is a perfect example. This is how that Sanyo had a Sears model made, is because they did the same type of thing. Introduced a temporary solution when Hitachi OEM models were delayed. So how can we get a player out in time? We'll get someone else to make it for us fast, real fast. Or they have that, let's just rebrand it. Put our logo on it. Thank you, we'll buy 10,000 units, whatever it was. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, realistics is basically insides of the same early Hitachis.
Tom recently posted that he had found a Thayer's Quest prototype that apparently RDI Halcyon was using in early. I mean, I'm assuming people know what the RDI Halcyon is.
I do know.
Okay, Laserdisc.
Yes.
Based video game player that came
Okay.
out. They only made like 12 before they went under.
Wow.
But Tom's post seemed to indicate that they had, at least in early development, were using CED. You know, kind of
Okay.
like Valley did with
Yeah,
NFL
with the football game.
And he actually found, for employee use only stamped disc of Thayer's Quest, which was Laserdisc game later.
Okay.
I guess I was wondering if anybody knew which player they would have used. Maybe the 265 was that player.
If you need, maybe if you needed software or like a computer to run and get to where it needs to go,
Well, yeah, I mean, the
more
Halcyon,
than the football one would.
The Halcyon was a piggyback unit. You had a standard, I don't remember the Pioneer Laserdisc player with RDI, which stands for Rick Dyer, who invented, I don't know if invented is the right word, Dragon's Lair.
Okay.
But it had a computer on top of it, and the player was just a standard Pioneer. So I'm assuming that if they had gone ahead with RCA, it would have been a standard.
Yeah, they might have been able to adapt the 400 to it.
Well, has anyone ever seen any software for driving the Dimension daisy chain? And I ask in part because I'm pissed I didn't buy it. There was the RCA video game system, the Studio 2. There was a cartridge that tied it into the Dimension management.
Into Dementia?
Dementia, yeah. And I don't know what it did, how it did it, but it's pretty unlikely that it was, like an eBay scam, right? Because I mean, it's like you're going to scam a market of like this is it. But it was, some kind of game cartridge, and I don't know if that was just to use the, the up-down arrows of the console as an input device or whatever, but it theoretically tied from there, I'm guessing, into the 400 player, since that's the only one that had that daisy chainable input. Never saw it, could never track down the guy who bought it.
Well, the timing seems a little weird. Because the Studio 2 crapped out like 4 years before the 400 came out.
Yeah, that's that.
I mean,
but it still could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been an engineering skunk works. I mean, who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Saw it once, never was able to find anything about it.
Yeah, unlikely a scam though.
Yeah.
With the games, I don't know what they would have done. I know that the VHD players, they had a game, they had several games, but you had to have this, it was like an MX-1000, like side computer, and it played like cassette tapes with the VHD. Well, it was very confusing, and it cost, like, someone had one on eBay, the whole set was like $8,000. Just ridiculous. But you can still find like the video game discs for VHD players on like Yahoo Japan, and there's one called Time Gal, and it's looks like a game, and it is a game, but I don't have any idea what it is, but it comes with a little cassette and a disc and a weird little box. It's pretty cool. I've seen a few of them. There's a couple that don't have the cassette, like they didn't have it at all, so I don't know how those work either.
Yeah, that's the software.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like how MSX did it. With
There you go. MSX, that was the part that you needed to connect to the VHD player in order to play those games. Yeah, other than that, for games, I no idea with the CD, but it would have been awesome. Yeah, I'd assume it would eventually have been possible. Same with 3D and stuff like that, because VHDs do 3D, and they're almost the exact same.
Well, I mean, but the Thayer's disc part exists. I'd be very curious time to put a whole lot of details about it.
I'm sure you probably will at some point. Does it help? Was
That
this recent?
That was
Yeah, it
one
was
post, I
a
think.
couple weeks ago.
Okay, I haven't been on the forums in a while.
Yeah, he didn't say where he found it, how he found it. He said he played it, but he didn't have any video or anything like that.
Okay.
Of course, I mean, it doesn't really
No, I
play.
can see it, though,
because
that's
you
for sure.
need a computer to input, but
Well, I mean, that's the review for the players. We can set the service data and owner's manuals later, like when we do stuff with the players, unless you want to look at one now. There's really no point. Obviously, player disassembly inspection we can do later. I can do the notes on servicing Japan players, because there's really not much, because you're not going to get any parts. So it's really just belts and greasing, and that's really easy. The stylus, John will talk about those stylus later. You can, if you have one, you can probably get it cleaned. You can, the Sanyo and the Toshiba and the Elmo, they all use like the RCA style, the FG. Actually show you. The early ones, will, the Sanyo and the Elmo use the 14.9 because they're not stereo. The Toshiba 550, they end up using those because they're stereo. That's Hitachi stylus. That's JK Player stylus. Yeah, the belts, the same two belts, pretty much in all of them. Actually, there's three belts, sorry. The later models use the same size belt for the turntable, raising and lowering, and for the stylus arm. The early ones have two different size belts. You can still get them from Tom. You just have to send the self-addressed stamp envelope to him. He'll send them to you.
Yeah, Tom's got a list of every single player and which belt goes with that player.
Yes, he does have that.
So.
And it says the size too and everything about it, so that if you can't get it or you want to go buy 20 from someone else, you can find the dimensions for that belt. The Hitachi ones are really weird to work on because, like, to replace the belts, you have to like move parts that don't sound like they want to move. Like the stylus arm, you have to physically push, take the belt off and clean it, and pull it back. And it just, the timing belt in the back clicks. It just doesn't sound right, but it's okay. The later models, the worm gear at the bottom that raises and lowers, you want to grease that, but that can also break. And then he has a problem, we might be able to see that later, where it will lower the turntable perfectly fine, but it starts to spin the other way and it pops the bar up that holds the pulley for the belt and the worm gear. It pops that up and the tension's gone. So it will only raise it like halfway. So you have to take the top off,
I've got one that
raise
does
it yourself.
that I can't fix. I've tried everything and not well.
Yeah. Some of them are really weird. They get really weird problems. Like you'll plug it in, you'll start to put the disc in, and you can see the turntable start spinning up. And then you put it in, and it stops turntable, and then sets down, and then like doesn't want to start back up. Some of them will start back. They're really weird and not convenient or fun to work on. I know that John doesn't work on because they don't have replacement parts, and they're hard to fix. They're just not fun to work with at all. But they can be done. And again, as long as it's just belts, you consider yourself lucky. You know what I mean? Because it's any part after that. I mean, you can find mechanical parts from other players. That's your best bet. You're never going to find, I mean, you might find new old stock, but you're probably not going to. Yeah. They're just inconvenient players really now. They really are. They didn't think about repairing them 30 years later. I mean, RCA didn't either, but RCA had enough parts and stuff. Yeah, that's about it for the Japanese players. And yes, I guess the Sanyo is a Japanese player?
Yes.
Okay, that would probably explain why it's so different from the rest. Yeah, that's about it for the Japanese players.